Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Yashwendra Singh, Executive Editor of ETCIO and the moderator of this very pertinent and topical discussion on transforming digital experience, boosting commerce revenues while reducing costs. The spread of COVID-19 across the world has disrupted everybody's buying patterns and how they perceive e-commerce. According to IBEF, the market opportunities for online commerce in India are expected to touch $200 billion dollars by 2026, up from $30 billion dollars in 2017. The report also states that the Indian e-commerce industry is expected to overtake its US counterpart to become the second largest market for e-commerce in the world by 2034. While the outlook for e-commerce companies is bright, they will have to overcome several limitations that currently exist. In today's time, where user experience and customer journey is so critical, e-commerce companies need to rethink speed, scale, security, and insights. In this panel discussion today, we have with us leading technology decision makers from the e-commerce sector who will throw light on how to deliver superior customer experiences and enhanced business growth. So without any more ado, please allow me to introduce our panelists of the day in alphabetical order. Mr. Anup Nair, co-founder Mirao, Mr. Manish Saini, Chief Operating Officer, Ferns and Petals, Mr. Manoj Bubna, CEO and co-founder N7, the Nitrogen Platform, Mr. Naveen Gulati, Group CIO, Car Dekho, Mr. Pankaj Virmani, founder and CEO, Clovia, and Mr. Rahul Anand, founder, Hopscotch. Welcome, gentlemen. But before we get on with the discussion, I would like to invite Mr. Manoj Bubna, who's the CEO and co-founder of N7, the Nitrogen Platform, to deliver his presentation. Over to you, Manoj.
Hey, thank you, Yashwendra. A very, very good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of Nitrogen Platform, I welcome you to this roundtable discussion on transforming digital experience. I have a slide that I'll use. Let me share it. So without further ado, let's start. So when we look at digital experience at a high level, I want to talk about two things, the what and the how. What is, when we say what, we are really talking about the content and the data that we need to show to the customer. But the how is how we are showing this content and the data to the customer. And if you see in the last 3 years, this how has become very important. The user experience it has become critical because the customers have become very impatient. There are guys who cannot be on a website if your website is taking more than 3 seconds to load. And this has also happened because the web assets have become very complex, very heavy. Right now, if you look at your web assets, the web assets are very dynamic, personalized, and that's the reason things are becoming heavier and heavier. Even the web consuming devices are varied. You'll find devices from low power capacity to high power capacity. The network connectivity goes from 2G to 4G to fiber optics. Even the tech stack, we talk about this new world at headless architecture, which is great for a few things. But from the performance perspective, it is making your front end very heavy. And all these things are affecting how we are communicating to our consumers. So I think you will agree with my statement here, where I'm saying that poor speed and security is going to give you a very bad user experience, and that is resulting in loss of dollars. So according to me, the need of the hour right now is really to have sub-second website interactions. We need to have low security vulnerability, so performance and speed. And if you add few nifty things, because only performance and security doesn't make up for it. If you add those things, you get a better user experience. That is absolutely required. And a late entrant into list, according to me, is Google Web Vitals. Google has done a fantastic thing. This is the first time a leader like Google has come into this space and has tried to standardize it. What it is trying to do is, it is basically saying, going forward, we will start looking at things from this metrics, because there were so many metrics available outside. It is looking at how fast your pages are loading, what is the interactivity, and how's the stability of your page. And this will become the most important thing for all of us. The compliance to this will make our marketing dollars go a long way. So I would encourage you guys to start looking at Google Web IDs. So what have we seen so far? I have gone through why it is important, what is the need for the R, but let's take a look at what we have tried so far. I think all of us have put in an army of engineers to make our websites faster. Everybody has done that. We have put in a lot of hardware. Everybody is putting enormous amount of hardware. And we have also used traditional CDN technology, where we are doing network optimization and caching. When we say traditional CDN technology with lot of POPs all around the world, what it is doing is it is doing the network optimization and it is doing caching for you. But has it really worked? I mean, the question is it working? Are you guys having a website which is downloading in 1 second? Are you having a sub-second websites? Why is it not working? Let's pause here. We're putting so much of money and time and it's still not working because we are solving the wrong end of the puzzle. I was just having a discussion 10 minutes back and this was very pertinent. Why do I say we are solving the wrong end of the puzzle? Because if you look at it, the amount of time a request and a response spends, it only spends 10% of the time in application. You go to your monitoring tool and you look at how much time a function takes. A function will take 250 milliseconds, 300 milliseconds, 450 milliseconds. You have really a big problem. Your database is not giving you data in the right manner, maybe 750 milliseconds. So we are really talking about something which is only taking 10%. So if you put in a lot of engineers to take care of your backend, it's only the ROI is only going towards the 10%. Then comes the network side of it. Somebody in Mumbai trying to type NewYorkTimes.com, that request has to go all the way to New York and come back. That is your network turnaround time. The network turnaround time at this point of time is only 10%. So if somebody says we have 300 POPs or 700 POPs or 1 POP, all he is able to do to you is give you a saving of 250 milliseconds. The majority of the time, the 80% of the effort right now is being spent by your browser, because browser needs to read the response and browser needs to render those response, paint it on the browser. And we're not doing that. Everything is on the server side. So what is really required? We have to think outside the box. Whatever we have been doing is clearly not working. And this will become more apparent as we go along. In future, you go 6 months from now, you don't have a site which is running at 3 seconds. You go 12 months from now, 18 months from now, it will become very, very critical for us to go get there. But is there a solution available? Yes, absolutely. We just need to think outside the box. One of the things that we discuss in this domain is, instead of thinking pages, because everybody is thinking about pages, everything that we do, even the metrics that you see, they are all page-related metrics. But why are we thinking about pages? Are your customer only coming to your site on one particular page? There is no page journey. There is nothing like page on a website. What a customer is doing is a journey on your website. He is coming to a landing page. He's going to some detail page. Maybe he's doing checkout. Whatever it is doing, it is actually a journey. And unfortunately, right now, there are no metrics which are talking about journeys. There is no effort actually which is being put from a journey perspective. Actually, some of the effort are counterproductive. The page optimization effort and philosophy that are out there in the world, these are counterproductive to what is required to get your journeys optimized. Let me take an example. So let's say Manoj comes to a website, and a website understand that Manoj, when it comes to a website, it basically does these particular thing. It lands on a home page, then it goes to a category page. From the category page, maybe it goes to the men's department, looks at few things, and that is his typical journey. Maybe you have also created a segmentation which Manoj becomes part of. Can we not start caching ahead of time? And as soon as Manoj lands on the home page, everything else basically gets cached on your laptop, on your browser. As soon as that happens, look at the enormous gain in user experience you will have. Everything becomes instantaneous. The gain some of these customers of ours have actually seen because of predictive caching, we call it personalized predictive caching, is enormous. Everything is instantaneous. Your customers just love the feel where you know the customer and you're giving them that sort of a user experience. I'll go a little bit technical, just another 10 seconds. I stated there are few technical things which are counterproductive. I don't want to just leave it at that. I'll give you an example where everybody right now knows that the JavaScript on a page has to be inline instead of putting it on a file, because it makes sense. Why would you want to keep it make a file? It will slow things down. But if all your pages are going to be running the same inline JavaScript, would you not be faster if you put that in a file and then cache the file? So maybe your first page is slightly slower, but rest of your journey is faster. So this was just an example to convince you guys that from a journey perspective, start thinking from a journey perspective and not really only page. The biggest issue on commerce that I feel that gets talked about a lot of times is the bounce rate on landing pages. Most CXO expresses concern that the customers are not able to find the right product. Let me illustrate this with a video. So you will see this is a traditional environment where there are a lot and lot of products out here. Obviously, we cannot put that on an online mechanism. And plus, the salesperson are very sophisticated. They will give you the product that you like. If they have it, they will give you a product that they like within a minute or so. Obviously, till the time we do not have computers which can think and give you exactly what you want, we'll have to do something different. There is a huge stride being made right now on the AI driven search engines. You know, these guys look at every single thing that you do on the website, and instead of you searching for a product, they actually give you the product as part of your navigation, because that's the accepted philosophy. Why do you want people to search for it? You know, show them recommended products, this is what you may like it, and things like that, which is working out fine. But if people are still searching for products, we have to change the UX slightly, because the UX that we have at this point of time is where people actually use filters, then click on a button, it takes around 10 seconds, something comes up, then they would want to change it because they don't like the brand. Maybe they want to change the pricing looks expensive. There are a lot of things that will happen. This becomes very tedious. If somebody is really coming to the site with the intention of finding the right product that they really are looking for it just becomes very tedious. So we have to change that user experience. What can we do? Is there a solution like an instant product catalog? Can we really provide that? What happens? I mean, just think about it. What happens to your website if you have instant product catalog? Every single landing page of yours really will be able to instantaneously give the results back for your customer to be able to find the product they need. The kind of user experience this brings along is going to be phenomenal. Just something to think about. Obviously, we can have a bigger discussion later on as part of a panel discussion, but I would wanted to leave it at that. So we have looked at nifty topics according to me so far. You know, we talked about journey optimization, really creative solution. We talked about instant product catalog, but can we do something which is very transformative at the product level? Because what I see right now in the industry is there is so much of technical debt. I like the visual that's out there. Whatever you do, there is so much of load you are carrying. You can't really improve the speed. So what is required is, instead of technologies trying to solve the server side of things, we have to start solving the client end. We need to have modules like dynamic content optimization, which can read your HTML responses and which can correct things on the fly. And these solutions are there. So I'm not saying things that are coming 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line. These type of solutions are there for the last 3 years. What they will be able to do is, they are not asking your team to come up with the most optimized page, because that is not possible. The most optimized page, if you think about it, will be written in assembly language, which is difficult to maintain. But what will happen is, the vendor needs to start understanding these HTML responses and simply optimize it on the fly. Things can be sequenced. There are a lot of interesting things that can be done. There are some trade-offs that we need to understand, but at a high level, I really feel that the industry should move away from just the pops and the network optimization and start thinking about client side optimization that is required. 50%, one of the other thing that's happening on the commerce sites are 50% of our page loads time are because of third-party scripts. You look at any commerce site, there will be analytics on it, there will be personalizations, interesting feature set. Do we need it? Absolutely yes. They fill out a great space from a requirement perspective. But if you talk to any engineer how to improve the speed, this is something we can't touch, because this is a third party scripts. You can't really go and start touching your third party scripts. If 50% of your page load times are something that you are not touching, then there is not much you can do. Today you are at 10 seconds. Whatever you do, you'll still stay at only 5 seconds. Is there a space possible where we can optimize the third party scripts? Can we sequence our third party scripts? Can we choreograph the scripts in a manner which gives us a better performance? Can we circuit break our scripts? Circuit breaking, what I mean by that is, yes, 2 hours back, one of your third party scripts was working fine. But today, after 2 hours, if it is having a problem, do you have the capability? Is there a system which can circuit break out of it and still give you the minimal feature set that is required on the website? There are already solutions like that. I think these are very exciting solutions where we can do all of that. Sequencing is possible, choreographing is possible, circuit breaking is possible. Let's take an example. You have a chat box. The chat box is slow. Do you really want to slow down your entire page because your chat box is slow? Maybe we can hold on to that for a little while, make the page render, and then basically have the chat box here. So I'll stop. Those are the things for me from a performance perspective that we should look at. But there is no discussion that is complete without security. Security threat, according to me, has changed a lot in the last 18 months. But do we still need to solve it? The traditional way of solving security is, have a rule engine which is available freeware, and you start putting rules on it. There are there are vendors who may have 1,000 rules. There are vendors who may have 2,000 rules, 5,000 rules, 20,000 rules. The whole security game at this point of time is, have a rule engine, have these rules around it, and then provide the security. But this is slow. This is not a cleaner approach. The tech stack right now gives us the ability to provide you that sort of security in a much faster manner. Let's take another example. Let's think about captcha. Do people really like captcha? I know captcha actually does a wonderful thing from a security perspective, but from a marketing guy's perspective, would they really want to have a captcha? If it's possible to give you a captcha protection without having a captcha, will you take it or not take it? These are some of the things that's happening right now in security and improving the user experience. uh, just another small thing on security. I would encourage all of you, whoever is listening on this call, to talk to their team and try and see who's reading the WAF, web application firewall security reports on a daily basis. And I'll tell you, the answer will be maybe less than 5%. So what's really happening, guys, is you have a big product, you have rules around it, but you are not looking at what is the false positives coming out of it, what are the false negatives coming out of it. There is nothing that's happening. People are trying to find vulnerabilities around your system, but the reports are not getting looked at. One of the movement that's happening is, instead of having your own security team, instead of buying WAF, you should be looking at a managed WAF, somebody providing you a managed security services, and they have the performance experts who will give you day in and day out things that have happened on your website, what changed yesterday, what were the attacks that happened, what are the false negatives, all of that. Plus, your threat surface are not going to be the same as the next guy's threat surface. So you really cannot just live with the 20,000 rules. Even if somebody gives you that, you will need that 20,000 in the first, 20,000 in second. These rules are really required, that are very specifically created for you. And finally, we all want to understand every detail of our site. Do we capture funnel? Yes, absolutely. Everybody captures funnel, right? I mean, we can't live without capturing funnel. Do we capture server performance details? Yes, absolutely. There are a lot of tools which will give you exactly how long a request has spent in each and every function on your website. Are we capturing logs? Yes, you know where are your errors coming from. But if I still ask you, do you have a 360-degree analytics? You probably may think yes, but the answer is really no. I'll just ask you a simple question. Today, whatever errors are there on your site, who decides the priority for it? Is there a way we can basically say this null section cost us $50,000 yesterday? The priority, and that is the cross-functional use case where we should know what's happening on the business side is connected to the server side as well as connected to the logs. Once you have this 360-degree, you will have huge insight into what's happening on your site. Plus there are a lot of other feature set on the analytics that people have started looking at as to what sort of mobile device my user has. It's not only in terms of the title, the logos and all. It can be even in terms of how many CPUs that this device has, because that detail is really required if you are going to be doing advanced image optimization. You cannot really send the same 1 MB image to every mobile device. So you really need to have these sort of analytics. I think I'll stop here. I hope we will have a very spirited discussion. That's it, guys. You have all been very amazing. Over to you, Yashwendra.
Great. Thank you so much, Manoj, for that wonderful and insightful presentation. We'll now dive straight into the discussion. Let me set the ball rolling with Manish. Manish, the pandemic, shifted business and consumers to digital overnight. Right. Most organizations are seeing traffic patterns changing by 100,000 users in a few days. Right. What's your strategy to handle scale instantaneously, infinitely, to increase conversions and save on infrastructure cost as customers increasingly go digital?
Sure. So first of all, I have to elaborate that we are a true omni-channel business in this country. We are as digital as a digital company as we are a retail company, and we've been there for donkey years. So all our technical infrastructure is on clouds, which allows us to scale up and down almost instantaneously as and when the demand is there. All right. So right after the pandemic or during the pandemic, or even for occasions in our business, so the demand surges overnight or within few hours, right? And during the day also, it goes high in the peak time, it goes low in the, of course, the lean time, and etc., right? So we are on clouds that allows us to scale up the infra instantaneously, but that's only one part of it. One is that serving the customer on the front end side, and the second is handling that load on the operational side of it, right? So the fact that we have a hyper-local operational network, the retail network across the country, and we are not dependent on third-party, courier or last mile delivery partners, we were able to manage it. And some of the stores are also they're diversified categories we are in. So the cake category happens to be the essential category in this lockdown. So we are operational, and that's how we've been able to manage it.
Great, Manish, great inputs. Let me come to Rahul now. Rahul, the festive season is sometimes called the golden quarter because it brings so much business to retailers. These months, I feel, are nothing short of that. How do you take care of the surge, this surge that is witnessed by all retailers without spending too much? What's your strategy here?
Sure. I think we do a couple of things. One, every business is built different. As a fast fashion kids retailer, we focus a lot on building rapid feedback loops on the demand and the supply side of the equation. So what that means is, as a business, we believe that understanding which trends are performing and rapidly responding to those on the supply side with factories and other vendors is mission critical. So we continue to operate with very lean, inventories, and at the same time we ensure that every day when we launch 300 and 400 new unique and unseen styles, that we are rapidly churning those through a machine learning model. It gives us results in a matter of a few days. And then we're able to respond with a very dynamic supply chain that feeds us within a week or two. So at any given point, you don't have to hold more than 4 or 5 weeks of stock. You can constantly have new exciting things. And you do that in a data-driven way to rapidly replenish. So that's what we do, right? I think we've designed our business to respond to the surges in demand. And by the way, the contractions in demand. Let's get real over here. We're sort of at the beginning of May, and we've seen huge contraction in demand during the month of April. And you need a supply chain that can do both, contract when it needs to and expand otherwise. So you can really respond to these massive changes due to the pandemic, or alternatively, given huge demand upcoming.
Sure, Rahul. Great. So you need to be, prepared to handle the dynamics of demand. Absolutely. Great. Coming to you, Pankaj, I'm sure you are witnessing a spike yourself in your business. But this is a problem of plenty, which I think is a good problem to have. What's your strategy here?
Yeah, again, it's a very unfortunate time where while we are celebrating revenues on one side, it's a sad time for rest of the things. But I think Rahul's put it very nicely. I think one positive aspect for a D2C brand like ourselves, right? So we are probably shipping a product every 3 seconds now, and I think the biggest challenge is I'd not say challenge. I think the biggest positive for us is that we can talk to the customer directly. All of a sudden the middlemen have gone away, and all of a sudden you have access to this immense amount of data. And all of a sudden when you have access to data, you have a lot more control over your supply chain. And if you have a supply chain matching your data understanding, all of a sudden everything changes. And I think that's what Rahul has very nicely explained for us. So I think while the infrastructure bit, of course, the auto scaling on cloud and things like those, are anyways in place, which can handle surge of traffics. And of course, it's an ongoing learning process, as Manoj has so nicely presented. Everybody kind of keeps evolving every day. I think the bigger challenge is the supply chain, and it all boils down to, for us, it's a lot more complex, because lingerie, you have 40 sizes for a single product, so all of a sudden it's not an SML Excel problem, it's like 10x the same problem. So it's exactly the same thing. You drip feed, you take feedback, and basis the feedback, you quickly scale. I think that's the model that you got to follow. One interesting thing that we guys do is a lot of feedback that we get from the end consumer, because that helps us understand not just the sales pattern, because customer and consumer may not be the same, right? So while sale might be happening, the NPS might get low for a certain product. So if you get able to merge the two, all of a sudden, you can get a lot more insights, and then scale become a lot more meaningful for the end consumer.
Sure. Great, Pankaj. Anup, your thoughts here? Do you echo what the other speakers just said?
Sure. Yeah. For an e-commerce company, actually, the biggest focus is always the supply chain and the infrastructure, the distribution network primarily. That is always the breaking point for an e-commerce company when there is a surge of demand as such. Parallelly, what's happened is the entire e-commerce industry experienced demand, and the bottleneck became the distribution, that is the courier partners actually, right? So everybody is fulfilling Amazon's orders, and where does the priority come for the smaller players like us, right? But that being said, there's the focus of the, I'll fill in the part about the backend infrastructure piece where it's important to have the right system architecture in place. So being technical founders ourselves, so we were invested in infrastructure from the get-go. So earlier on, we were able to build, microservices-based architecture that is, able to scale up much better than plain vanilla cloud computing. And I agree with Manoj that the focus on the server side should be less, because these days saving that cost is not such a big deal. It's actually very cheap. Servers are very cheap these days, right? It's more about the customer experience on the front end part, and the front end takes the bulk of the time these days, right? It takes 5 to 6 seconds to process JavaScript, to render the images. That is where the focus should be, and I'd be happy to hear the rest of the solutions from Manoj on this. But this is what my 2 cents on this. Yeah.
Sure. Great, Anu. Naveen, your thoughts here.
So as a very large group under the Car Dekho brand, I would not say things have been very smooth for us on all the fronts. However, largely we always had our systems tuned to scale up automatically and scale down. So while we deliver a very seamless user experience, but we also conserve costs when there's less of traffic. Right? So that helped us. But yes, there were certain projects which were in pilot, and during the pandemic we saw a massive surge in traffic on all our platforms. Right, folks had a lot of spare time at hand, and cars being one of the most passionate things. Right, so we saw a lot of surge on the platforms, and then we had to fast track those pilots to keep delivering the same seamless experience to our customers. Right, there were few channels that we were working on. So we were fine tuning our chatbots, and when the entire pandemic happened, and a lot of focus shifted that side, because BPO was getting disrupted. There were fewer callers who were really ready to take on all the load that we had. Right, so we had to engage better to all our customers through all the channels that we could, and so we had to really scale up our initiatives around chatbot, that the ones that we were piloting, and that's how we handled the search.
Great, Naveen. Let me come to Manoj now. Manoj, I'm sure you would be interacting with lots of retailers, lots of technology leaders in this vertical. What do you hear from them? How are they managing the surge in traffic? And how do you look at the strategies shared by our panelists?
I agree with how Rahul basically is looking at it from a business perspective. That's absolutely the right way to look at it. Most of the guys are looking at it from that. But if we want to look at it from a technology perspective, and if you think about what are the downside of scaling, what is it that we are trying to do? The trade-off on scaling is really cost. If you actually can have an unlimited scale, the downside to that is your cost is going to be enormous. Or if you do not manage the scale in the right manner, then the trust and confidence goes away. I mean, we have been live in US for a very long time. During Thanksgiving, even the bigger brands, some of the biggest brands will basically not have their site working for 30 minutes, 4 hours, 8 hours also. So to me, yes, this is a problem that people feel is done and dusted. But there is so much of revenue that we are losing because it is not entirely efficient. Just to give you a small example, what happens is we feel that our servers are elastic. They can scale infinitely. But the amount of time that it takes to scale, some of the server takes around 5 minutes to scale, because you need to actually have those things loaded up. You probably sometimes don't even have those 5 minutes. Lot of times what also happens is, along with the data that's coming from the server, we are sending a lot of website or the front end related data. What that does is it makes it very difficult for server to scale because it has so much of junk along with it that it becomes heavier and heavier. Cutting it short, I just feel that if we start looking at this scaling aspect a little bit more in detail, there is so much of money to be made or saved here. There are right sort of caching strategies that are out there which you can employ, which will not cache 90% of your data. Right now, if you look at your website, everybody feels my website is absolutely dynamic, but your website, other than the customer name and customer detail, is not really dynamic. I mean, the product we feel is dynamic, but other than the product ID, everything around that product, the image, the description, can again be cached. So instead of going back to your servers again and again and making it expensive, we should start thinking about, can we cache it at a browser level? There is no money to be spent. The data is already there on the browser for your customer. Can we start caching it at the edge level? Nowadays, on the edge, we have an option to even do session caching. So a lot of things that a server was actually struggling and spending a lot of time can actually be done on the edge caches. So very interesting solution, very interesting time. I'm very excited to even know what this 3 years is going to bring to this industry.
Great, Manoj, wonderful inputs there. Let me come back to Manish now. Manish, the need of the hour is to be agile and change as per business needs. So, how much time are you spending on performance and security vis-a-vis, adding more business features? Have you done this maths?
Yeah. So, it's at the end of the day, it's a call that business has to take as to where the maximum ROI is. If on a track of performance as a racing track, if you are lagging behind, then possibly you will get a better ROI over there, right? Every second, every nanosecond that you save on the load time of the page is directly proportional to the conversion rate or the bounce rate and different critical vitals on the website, right? So one has to really assess as to if you where exactly do you stand on that race, right? And for my team, the idea is not to build a feature or improve anything. The idea is how much value you're going to deliver on different matrices. It could be NPS, it could be the conversion rate, it could be the operational efficiency, it could be the cost reduction, it could also be the additional revenue. So we build and prioritize features based on what can deliver what value and how much time is there go to market in go to market and how much effort is there, right? So we do that assessment, and there's always a juggling. There's no right answer that fits well for every question. So every question has a different answer. Yeah.
Sure, Manish. Rahul, more often than not, we have seen reluctance from the IT team to add more features, as they get slammed for, bad Google Web Vital Score or SEO rating by the marketing team. So how do you balance the two? Please unmute yourself.
I think the question is, how do you balance driving growth with performance of the stack, right? Look, I think that it's not an or, I think it's an and question, right? And we've got to constantly challenge our teams to ensure that when we build features, they're being duly tested before anything else gets released. About 70% of our demand happens to be from tier 2 and smaller cities, where shoppers have a 5 or 10,000 rupee mobile phone. It's got limited memory, finite bandwidth, connectivity, and the like. And so, we can build all the features we like, but if the product that we build and serve is clunky, it's game over. And so one of the things that we are putting into place is starting to do a lot more automated testing, so we can test for performance. As we layer more and more of these features on, we can understand the implications of the server and its response time as we release new features in our product.
Sure. Great. Pankaj?
Yeah, I think I'll break the problem down into two parts. One is, of course, test new features versus growth of current. I think you'll have to constantly evolve, and technology doesn't, I think the beauty of technology is that whatever you're doing today and seems pointless to even get involved in 3 months, that will be the thing that will disrupt your entire ecosystem. So I think you have to constantly be investing into future. if you don't do that, then you'll anyways get redundant, So I think technology is the only one which is on a very, very strong inclination, right? So you cannot kind of stay there, the gravity is going to pull you down. So I think there's a lot of energy that has to go into constantly evolving you. So what we have done is we've kind of built a little, what we called, for lack of better words, an R&D team, right? We have given it a fancy name. So what the gang basically ends up doing is just testing of new things which can be integrated, and which could be the future. So when they were testing chatbots way ahead of when chatbots was a sexy word to use, right? So those are the kind of things that you can do, envision, and that requires probably the most expensive, team members out there, because, it's not simple. I think that's one. The other part is the security bit. I think I'd beg to differ a little. I think that there cannot be a ROI math around security. It's like life insurance. The ROI is zero till the time, calamity happens. So I think security is something where you have no choice but to invest over a period of time as soon as you have certain bandwidth to do so, because, because while it may not have an impact on your business right away, the negatives around it can be very, very high. So I think that is something that unfortunately you have to constantly invest in. We have not been very successful in investing, while I commit that, we've not been doing it a lot because, frankly, because, always the limited resources have to be arranged at multiple places. But I think that's again something which over a period of time, especially during this, ever since this, brouhaha of COVID has started, I think security has become super, super important to kind of take care of. So I think that's one thing I totally agree with Manoj on, that, we need to constantly invest there and kind of improve on that.
Sure. Absolutely, Pankaj. Security definitely is of paramount importance, given the kind of attacks that we're seeing, post-pandemic. Coming to Anup now. Anup, your thoughts here. Obviously, it's really critical to add new capabilities and features. It's something like working on adding new capabilities as compared to just maintaining your existing infrastructure. While the latter is also important, but you can't, completely do away with the former. That is really critical for growth. What do you think? Your comments here.
Man, this is one of the toughest challenges that any technology team faces, any product owner faces, because infrastructure improvements don't have a measurable ROI as measurable as maybe a growth feature does, right? And growth features are always sexier and more easy to understand for the entire company, as opposed to the infrastructure improvement, which maybe only that engineer understands, right? So we went with static allocation on this. We have an infrastructure team which is separate from the features team. Like the growth team is a separate team, and infrastructure, we always have a minimum of 2 or 3 guys there who are always constantly working on infrastructure improvements. Now, agreed that as as priorities change, sometimes the couple the team might shrink to 1 person also. That happens, but still that mindset is there to drive infrastructure improvements. We in fact have goals around infrastructure on a more periodic basis. So this is something that we feel that if we lose our eye on it, we will lag by 6 months. See, you can drive a performance optimization month, a couple of months you drive performance optimization, then a whole bunch of features comes in and your website is suddenly slow again, and if nobody's working on infrastructure continuously, right? We have gone through cycles like that. To avoid that, we've broken down it into more of a monthly exercise, more regular focus area on that. So yeah.
Great. So Naveen, do you also take the approach, adopted by Pankaj and Anup, having separate teams that specifically focus on doing new things, or what is your approach here?
So, one is, this problem has not been new. I think this problem has always been there pre-COVID, during COVID, I think even post-COVID, right? So how we have evolved on this particular problem over years has been that we very, very focus on an agile and a pod-driven structure. So each pod works on their own set of initiatives. That way, we have new initiatives rolling out, while at the same time there are a plethora of initiatives which are under development, right? So the innovation doesn't stop. Secondly, what we started focusing was on FTRs, on first time right, which has really helped us improvise on our delivery speed. But overall, security has been of paramount importance. So we are okay to go a little slow or any initiative, but we don't let it roll out unsecured, because eventually things are really scary out there. We have all been witnessing various hacks that happen, right? And we would never want to be in a stage where the brand name gets dented because there was some loose ends which were really rolled out just in a hurry of a time, right? So, and how have we really handled that? We have really created a very tight integration on our entire CI and CD pipeline. We have dashboards and automated dashboards and automated steps, checks and balances in place, which keeps happening at various life cycle of our entire release. And when everything is really looking good, only then it goes ahead. So a lot of automation on that side has helped us bring visibility and transparency across the engineering teams.
Sure, Naveen. So Manoj, how do you look at the situation? I mean, the Pareto's principle, as they say, 80% of the time, energy, gets focused on routine stuff, and then 20% on new stuff. Should we upend this, or what's the way forward?
I think I agree. Somebody from the panel said, this is a continuous effort. And this was a music to my ear, the kind of conversation we are having. I agree. This is something we can't actually do post facto. Performance was always being looked at as a non-functional requirement. In our mind, there is a term that we use. One is called functional requirement. The other one is non-functional requirement. At this point of time, everything from a non-functional perspective, performance, scale, security, they are looked at in the same vein at the same time continuously, because without that you will reach a point where you will not be able to add new feature set, because anything below above 6 seconds you have a constant pushback. Let's not go above that, let's not go above that. So in that sort of case, what's your trade-off? Do you actually start then looking at performance, or you should have looked at it from the very beginning? So that's one way I would answer it. The second thing that I would always say, and I think Anup, you brought this up, that performance right now, the vendors that are out there, they are not selling performance product. What has now become vogue is to sell a performance service. So there is a managed performance service that is getting sold. So you don't really have to have a stop. You don't have to wait, look at it, then wait for another 2 months and then fix it. Every day, whenever a new feature set actually goes in production, the AI ML engine of these products are able to optimize things on the fly and get you back at the same level. There are a lot of notes that come out of it, lot of flags that come out of it that goes back into the development team that can be fixed. So the point being, instead of looking at it and doing a sort of a regression testing every 2 months and then fixing it, this needs to be a continuous effort, and there are models already in place which can be leveraged.
Sure, Manoj. Great, gentlemen. Moving on, Manish, what will change for you if your sites become sub-second sites? What multiplier, if increase in revenue, do you see happening if the site becomes sub-second?
Yeah, sure. So for any e-commerce website, even for the content website, the faster the page loads, the better the conversion rate is, right? We have done one experiment where there was a drive of optimizing the page at a war level, right? So we've seen uptick of about 10 to 15% in the conversion rate in the overall customer journey. But if your site is a sub-second site, I believe three things happen. One is, of course, the conversion rate that improves. Second is your rankings improve because Google, in Manoj's presentation, there were three matrices like FIC and LCP and FID, right? So if you are green on all those three matrices, you rank better on the SERP in the organic this thing. Your quality score is also better because, and then your CPC is higher. So your performance budgets are slightly improved because of your quality score. Your rankings are better. You get more organic traffic and more revenue, and your conversion rate is better. And of course, when your conversion rate is better, when your site NPS is better, customer retention, customer stickiness is also better, right? So it's a long-term gain if your site is a sub-second site.
Sure, Manish. Rahul, do you agree with him? Because obviously, anything over 4 or 5 seconds in loading time is simply unacceptable for user experience, and the shoppers will take their money elsewhere. Do you think these are the three things that are takeaways from a sub-second site?
It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. I think better performance, better off you are. Many of us have from big cities have been forced to experience what it's like being in areas where cellular networks are poorer, and of course data speed is slower. And so you begin to empathize with what most of our shoppers in the country experience when for the last year when we've been spending more time in smaller cities in India. And I think it's really a long game, right? When you have a product that just works, when that's optimized, right? You're actually embracing the ground realities for most of your consumers. And I think a 10 to 20% upside is yours for the taking, if not in the immediate term, certainly in the medium term over a 6 to 9 month time frame.
Wow, great. Pankaj, 10 to 20% upside?
Yeah, I think, frankly, I don't even know the number. And I think Manish kind of summarized it very well. This is like the age of the thumb, man. It just doesn't stop, right? And you got to work. I think all our effort is just to stop that thumb for a minute and make it click something, right? So I think what Manish rightly said was that, while your Google rankings go up, your retention NPS improves. I think even the performance marketing gets better because your conversions are improving. So everything is like, kind of feeding into the other. So it's not just about the revenues going up. All of a sudden, you start thinking your marketing expense starts going down. So it's like, so it's your CM2 changes completely. So I think the impact is much bigger than just revenue head. So
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely, man.
Sure. Anup?
Honestly, Manish said it correctly, but there are a couple of aspects I would like to draw from Manoj's presentation here. One is the which metric to look at, right? I mean, the first time load of the first page load is more important, or the entire journey is more important, right? That kind of is a very good way he described it. It's more important to have seamless transitions once the user has landed on the page, to go from page to page and have that journey very seamless. That has given us more results, and we actually plan to. The React platform implementation to do that is a good way to implement that experience, right? That's something pending for us, honestly, and we are hoping to implement that and get gains on that space. That being said, I think, and here might be the controversial viewpoint here, that there's a cliff. You get to 2 seconds, 3 seconds of load time. Optimizing beyond that is more cost, more effort than the result that comes out of it, right? Getting to 3 seconds is easy. Beyond that, how much do you spend and what is the relative ROI that improves, right? That's where we stopped, honestly speaking. That's where our performance engineers also said, "Iske aage na bahut mehnat hai." मुझे नहीं करना.
The cost benefit analysis comes into play there. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Sure, Anu. Naveen, your thoughts here?
Sure. So we have kind of sailed in between the newer platforms that we are developing today. So we are looking at upscaling our tech teams first, right? And a clear benchmark for us is we are not building these sites for India, but we are building these sites for Bharat. Right? Tier 2, Tier 3 cities are where the next performance benchmark lies for us. And the legacy platforms, of course, so they have their own cycle. And I resonate with what Anup said, that there's an ROI that you really need to look at. Whether all platforms can be at a same benchmark, the answer is no, right? So it's about prioritization, and that's the way that we have also been driving it.
Sure, Naveen. So Manoj, in fact, I was going through a report that said 7% loss in conversions and 16% decrease in customer satisfaction due to just 1 second delay.
Yeah.
So how tough actually is it to bring down a site to a sub-second? Because like Anup said, too much effort, too much money. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. So I think the right question for the group would have been, do you think sub-second site is possible, first of all? Because, it's to me, our answer that it will improve by 10 to 15% is right for every 1 second reduction. But if we basically close our eyes and really basically think, what happens to my site if my site really becomes a sub-second site? So to me, the question is, do we first of all believe our sites can be sub-second? And as soon as we believe that, the answer will not be around 10 to 15%, because from a cost benefit analysis, if there is a cliff, then from a reward perspective also there is an enormous cliff as soon as you become a sub-second site, because it's not really going from 4 to 3 or 10 to 8 or like that. Sub-second site, the way Manish basically said, Pankaj was saying, you just slide your thumb, everything is going to be like that. It's user experience is something very different, and that is not possible if we basically stick to the current sort of a design patterns. The architecture to achieve these things are there. They are tedious. They need to be actually put in place from the get-go, but they are out there, and those sites are also coming up, which are sub-second sites. Few of our customers are basically getting into that mode where they have requested us. They want to be a sub-second sites by a particular date. Now, I would encourage people to think about it. Look, it's easier if I have a niche space from a business perspective. A performance will only have a certain impact. But if there are comparable sites and one site becomes a sub-second site and the other site is, even at 3 seconds or 4 seconds, there is going to be a huge, huge difference. So I already see this movement where customers are requesting for it. It takes effort. It's not very expensive. It just needs to be thought of in the right.
Okay, great, Manoj. Manish, coming back to you, customers in the current time are unforgiving. To ensure customer stickiness, it is really crucial to address situations that impact user experience. Is there an approach wherein the organization can see in real time, issues in the system that impact customer experience?
Yeah, sure. So different organization make different dashboards. For example, we look at the fallout very, very religiously and very anxiously in the entire consumer journey for both transactional and non-transactional paths. We look at that. We also look at the load time of different pages. We also look at the error and because different networks in different geographies on a different day at a different hour have a different consumer behavior and different challenges, right? So how do you constantly look at those dashboards, look at those parameters, and then solve it in the real time? Somebody was mentioning about there are 2-3 constant guys who are working on the performance and security. Similarly, your DevOps team has to be deployed who's constantly looking at these different matrices, both from technology as well as marketing team, right? Marketing or conversion optimization team has to look at what's working, what's not working, right? And then further on, it gets extended into in terms of the banners which are there on the site, the products which are sequenced on the site, right? How consumer is behaving on that. So all of this is part of the UX only. How do you deal with that is the name of the game.
Sure, Manish. Rahul, what's your strategy here to take UX to the next level?
No, I think a couple of things, right? When you look at this problem, it sounds like an 80-20 rule. A lot of the performance and design-led choices are happening early on, right at the point when your UX designer and your product managers on the front end are designing the whole store experience. So my view on it is, once you begin to put a lot of those sticks in the ground, 80% of the performance is already committed to, right? Thereafter, you can tweak things around, but there's only so much effort. Now, that said, we're all, going and growing businesses here, and we already have inherited legacy code bases on the front end and on the back end. And so switching anything overnight is not easy. It requires deep and meaningful thought about when the right time is. And once you do it, you move forward. I'll give you an example, right? About 4 years ago, we were trying to optimize developer agility. And so having a React platform enabled us to share code bases and move much faster. But when you have React, it ends up making your app size much bigger, and you end up consuming a lot of resources from your client devices. And so these are all about making the right trade-offs, knowing who your consumer is. And I think it's oftentimes a very common fallacy to optimize only on one or two fronts when you realize these are multifaceted problems that require deep and meaningful thought.
Sure. So Pankaj, how do you get real-time insights into these problems, and who actually decides on the priority of these problems? Is it the IT, the business, or the marketing?
I think that's a fantastic question, and I think that's that probably an Achilles heel for all the organizations, because there are so many moving parts. So in a business like ours, where the first hook is bought by us, vis-a-vis the last mile shipment also is insured by us, and so life becomes very complex. So that so we actually defined a very interesting engine here. So we have an ideation platform where everybody kind of starts putting in their requests and requirements, and that kind of becomes that one-stop shop for everybody kind of to and this is more around future developments, since the question was not around ops for me, but more around how the decisioning is done. So and then what we did was we got hold of once a week we have a technology team meeting with the production team, because the production team uses a lot of our technology platforms. The entire the Monk, there is this the Sensei with the sixth sense, our replenishment planning engine, which is being used with the production team, right? So the production team, the marketing team, which is the direct sales team, and a host of other customer care, all of these guys come together, and everybody kind of lays out that these are the 5 issues that we've been going through, and then it's a decision that is taken collectively as to what will be scheduled for the next week, in the shorter span, and for the next quarter, if something which is a longer term project. So at any point of time, there are 2 longer term projects which are going on, which maybe a new auto management system, or new warehouse management being implemented, ERP changes, and there will be a lot of shorter term things to be done, which could be as simple as my dashboards are not working, or I need a new kind of a reporting tool, things like those. So, but it has to be a collective. It cannot be a one person just coming and saying, "Hey, we'll do this, and this." All of a sudden, your business matrices are absolutely unaligned to your business requirements, in a single shot. So yeah, but it's an art. There's no science beyond a certain point. And that's one thing I've also tried to figure out. I try to do a lot of optimization around giving weightage to things. Doesn't work. There has to be certain art to it, which is required here.
Sure, Pankaj. Anup.
I will pick up on that last statement, because that is the crux of it. I think it's a core art, and e-commerce is like very new, very nascent in India, right? It's hardly been 10 years, and so you don't have industry experts. Everybody is less than 10 years of experience. All the product people. This job actually lies with the product team, product managers, right? Like I'll give you an example, right? So the menu, if something is broken in the menu of e-commerce app, right, on mobile, you would think like it's important, but then you look at the data and you would see that, oh, less than 10% of the people actually access the menu. Then you'd say it's not important. But then you add another layer that, okay, the people who did access the menu, they were the ones who ended up shopping, right? Because these are the ones who were really engaging with your app and who were trying to find something, and they ended up shopping. Now, if you miss any of this thought process, if you don't know the entire picture, right, you end up prioritizing very incorrectly. We do use a little bit of science, that is, we try to look at the percentage of customers that any issue is impacting, and the consequence of that impact also, like the value of the a particular impact, right? So if given the multiplier of these two, we are able to prioritize, okay, this issue has slightly higher weightage than the other. But it's I'll tell you, it's gut feeling of the guy in charge at any given point of time to say, okay, this is more important to do at any.
Sure. Naveen. So what is the art behind the science of enhancing customer experience? Everybody's calling it an art. So
yeah. I think most of the aspects have already been covered by all the fellow panelists, but I would resonate. It is more of an art than a science. After a certain point, you cannot have this quantified, right? But there are a couple of ways that how we drive it. One is we have a center of excellence which meets every week, and every week we discuss on all the KPIs, and these are KPIs which are kind of common to the tech, product, and the marketing team. So in a way, it keeps everyone aligned. It keeps everyone aligned on how to prioritize and where to prioritize, right? And but beyond that, that's how it gets structured.
Sure. So Manoj, what's the best way to get insights in real time? And in your interactions with different retailers, what kind of problems do you get more through the tech department, or is it the marketing, or the business?
Uh, Great question, Yashwendra. And I think we have very matured e-commerce organization here, because the kind of comment that has come would not have been possible for somebody who's at the first level, second level, or even third level of innovation. And most of it is already covered. I think I'm just going to sort of summarize it. For us, what happens is we are trying to, it's an art. It's really is an art. And we are trying to give some scientific basis to it, so that the decision becomes a little bit easier. When we walked into this space, a lot of times what we heard was that a issue is getting resolved because it is being perceived as an interesting technical issue that needs to be resolved. But instead of that, our thought was we should try and resolve things with a dollar value associated with it. So if today you can actually say this is a null pointer exception that's coming when your server was basically having a CPU of 80%, and that point of time you lost $500,000 yesterday. If you can basically make a statement like that, those are the things we need to resolve. I mean, we don't need to, if we go after all our null pointer exception, it's very difficult. um, I mean, if you actually look at the tail, I mean, barely 1% of the issues are being brought up to customer services department. So the customer service department really would not know what's happening. So we need the right sort of analytics, because otherwise without that we'll be blind. All we try and say to that is, let's have a 360-degree where the exact weights can be assigned, where you know exactly the dollar amount. But then there is always an art part to it as well, because who has to say that $500,000 is important, or your logo not appearing from a branding perspective is a bigger problem? So obviously beyond a certain point, there are some decisions that needs to be taken by the execs, but we would want to give all that data so those decisions can be made.
Sure. Wonderful. Moving on, Manish, let's talk a bit more about cybersecurity. I know everybody's talked about it earlier in the discussion, but I think it's such an important topic that we should deep dive into it a little bit more. Obviously the pandemic has increased the threat service of organizations. There has been a quantum jump in cyber attacks since the COVID-19 started. How can technology leaders detect and mitigate any emerging and sophisticated threat quickly and easily, according to you?
Yeah. So security in terms of your customer data, in terms of your all the credit card information and any other information about the customer, one has to deploy the right kind of policies. And like Manoj mentioned, that it's a non-functional requirement, right? So when you are building the platform, you allocate the right amount of development efforts towards this, considering that this is a priority, and it indeed is a priority in today's day and age, right? While the customer, of course, is getting educated and gaining more knowledge on the security front, they are also now well accustomed to features like OTP, etc. So they appreciate, they expect this level of security, because your ecosystem is defining this level of security, right? And just having SSL logo is not enough anymore, right? You got to have privacy data, you got to have the right policies in place, right? So all of that is there. And I think we have more security experts on the panel. They will talk more about it. But in terms of how, as a technology leader, how are we deciding it? We just apportioning some sort of development effort, and it certainly takes priority as and when there is some update in terms of any technology feature or something that takes priority. We have also deployed a third-party audit agency who constantly, after every 3 months, look at the security threats on the platform across globe. They look at it and then they suggest the recommendations, and it keeps on happening, right? So
sure. That's a pretty good approach, Manish. Rahul,
and
how are you taking care of it? Yeah, please go ahead.
Someone was mentioning that as and when you build a new feature on the site, while your security threat was not there earlier, but a new feature may have attracted some vulnerability in the system, right? So you constantly have to monitor and then get the audits done. So that's how you can be ahead of the game.
Absolutely. Pankaj, would you like to add anything here? Cybersecurity?
Just a quick, one cent, and I think that is that while it is very important on the outward side, I think internally the intra organization, SLAs also have to be very strong in terms of who gets what kind of security access, and I think that becomes the role, and authorization and authentication is something which you end up learning the hard way, that you have to be very, very strong with within the organization. So I think that's also a very important aspect on the internal side, to add on to what Manish has added.
Absolutely. Anup, because a lot of proponents of cybersecurity say that security has to be built in rather than bolt on. So Anup, your thoughts?
Precisely. So I think so. This answer is it's a very technical question about how to build security. Basically, it's become very challenging to detect attacks and to predict the next kind of attack, because they are getting sophisticated by the day, right? So there are services that just provide firewalls. You just install WAF firewall, but as Manoj said earlier, it's not like a done and done business. You install a firewall and forget about it. You have to keep configuring it. You have to keep maintaining the WAF framework also. But the key part is actually, if your architecture is built in a way to handle failures, that is more important to have in place, right? That entire system doesn't bottleneck on one failure point. If you have a microservices based architecture which is pretty much independent, then one unit failure is isolated from another unit failure. This is actually a technical viewpoint of how to build security into your system, a very basic Manish said something about OTP, but that's the piece. So when we implemented OTP security check pretty early on, we saw a 10-20% drop in our conversions, right? And so we are practically losing money on the table because of security. And there should be definitely better mechanisms that are more seamless than customers switching outside the app, going to the SMS app, where you might see promotion of some other player and just move to it might not complete the shopping. So this is a necessary evil, but we are hoping for improvements in the industry here.
Okay, Naveen.
So I think this is a very interesting topic, and we can even have an hour-long discussion separately on how
you can have.
Yeah. So, but for us, security is of paramount importance. Right? I cannot emphasize that enough. Internally, how we have structured is we have a separate team who is independent of the tech hierarchy, who looks at the security posture of all the applications, so that there's no overlap, of any interest or a rush of things. And till we have security clearance done from the infosec team, we don't take things ahead. And on handling things at edge, we have our WAF deployed, which is again constantly looked into by another set of folks, whose sole responsibility in the organization is to look at how our WAF is performing and keep constantly innovating on the rule set. Right. So, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, Manoj.
Yeah. Just one more point before Manoj speaks is one has to realize what is the right level of security you want to implement on your platform, right? A security for a BFSI would be different altogether than for security for an e-commerce website versus a content or a discovery platform like Cardeko, right? Where there's no transaction happening, there is no card saving happening, right? So one has to, it's a very, very fine balance that one has to manage what you want to adopt. Don't do it just for the heck of it. Otherwise, the customer experience will then get affected. If you have the right amount, then it's fine.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Manoj, what is the fine line that one should toe, managing security and customer experience, both going hand in hand?
No, there is no fine line. I think I completely agree with Manish. What he said is absolutely spot on. So one of the things that my security team has to do, they spend around a month whenever we basically onboard a new customer, because there is really no right answer. If you basically go 100% conservative, then there is no accessibility. Even a login page, a login text, it's a security vulnerability because it's opening up the application for you. Or if you become 100% accessible, then you have security concerns. So I 100% agree that this is more of an art. every application has a different sort of a threat surface, and you need to configure that according to the requirement as well as the technological threat surface that you see. But beyond that, the one comment without getting too technical is there is capability that a lot of bigger companies have where they can use the security experts. They can create new rules. I'm very surprised, and I'm glad to hear that Naveen's team actually have security experts that can create personalized and customized rules for the threats that they are facing. But a lot of what we are seeing is beyond the top 5%, people are using WAF, which is a managed WAF. So instead of you having your 10 security experts, you basically go to a vendor which have maybe 50 security experts, and they can manage those in a much better manner.
Wonderful. We've had a great discussion, gentlemen, but we're fast running out of time. So one final question to all of you before we open up the session for questions from our attendees. Now, starting with Manish, what are your future plans? Say, in the next 1 year, what are your plans with respect to technology and business?
Oh, very, very aggressive. All right. So we have a huge investment plan, which are already in process. And because we are scaling up in the international geographies also very aggressively. We already are operational in 5 geographies in addition to India. So we are heavily investing on technology, on every aspect of technology. We're building the platform grounds up again. And so super, super aggressive and excited also at the same time.
Wonderful. All the best, Manish. Naveen?
So we continue to. So new car is a space that we are predominantly known for, and we are making huge inroads in the used car space in India, which is under the Gadi and Trustmark brands. And also we continue to replicate the same journey that we had in India in Southeast Asia. So we are already we have done a couple of acquisitions already in Malaysia and Philippines. And Southeast Asia happens to be the next bigger market for us.
Very nice. Great plans there. Naveen, Pankaj?
Yeah, so for us, I think we guys are growing almost like 15% a month now. So it's all about managing the growth and in a way so that the NPS doesn't go down. I think new geographies is again Mid East is something we've just started working in. Just we shipped like $1 million worth of product last month, which which we're very happy about. And I think we'll continue to scale there. And I think from a technology perspective, 2-3 things. Personalization is going to be huge. I think that's something we're working on. Video is going to be huge. I think the catalog has to be replaced by video at some point of time, which we're working on. And some part of live chat, which we believe is going to be very, very big part of the future. So these are 3 things that we guys are focusing right now.
Great. Rahul?
I think very similar things thematically. First, we believe India is a supply-starved market, and we barely scratched the surface. So we continue to be extremely buoyant and optimistic about the Indian market. And I think beyond that, there's been very strong interest from the third parties to carry our brand on their platform. We launched on Amazon about a year ago, and within 90 days, we were the #1 player driving a large portion of their revenue. And so there's a lot of deep discussion and partnership about expanding internationally in the Middle East and in the US market, taking our extremely value-driven merchandise and allowing consumers around the world to enjoy.
Great. Anup?
Quite a bit of overlap in this space. Mostly our focus is on the changing experience formats. So basically, customers want more than the vanilla e-commerce shopping that is there. They are right now shopping in groups. The shopping is actually happening on WhatsApp, and customers want more of a realistic live experience of the product, which is the video shopping piece that is happening. I think every e-commerce company is going to go in that direction, which are providing a more richer consumer experience, because that is changing pretty fast. And so that's where our focus is. Another big problem to solve from a technology perspective is in the line of fashion, primarily is size and fit. And probably Clovia has the problem also, right? So sizing, returns are a big component of e-commerce, right? And a big portion of returns is the size fitment issue. How can technology solve this problem? How can we do more in terms of video based size measurements of the customers that can help narrow down that gap between the customer's expectation and the actual product? These are the areas that we are working on primarily.
Wonderful. Everybody has got tall plans for technology and business, and very robust and very bullish about the future. So all the best to everybody. Manoj, final comments from you before we open up the session for questions.
Thank you all. I feel this was a fantastic discussion. From a plan perspective, guys, Yashwendra, I started my career in late 90s. And what we saw in e-commerce at that point of time, in those 3 years, is something which is happening now. So the amount of innovation that happened before the dot-com bust, the entire thing, this next 3 years is going to be crazier than that. So everything that we can think of, it will be even more innovative than that. So in the last 2 years, we have deployed 7 new products. Every day we are thinking about the new sets of challenges, new innovation that we need to bring about. And there is just a laundry list of things that can be done. So I agree with things that Pankaj, Manish, Anup and Rahul saying. Everything on the recommendation part, everything that's happening on the video, there are newer and newer solutions, newer and newer touch points that's out there that we need to think of. But we are very bullish. It's a very exciting time to be in this industry.
Sure. Great, Manoj. So we'll open up the session for questions from our participants now. We already have a few questions from them. I don't think we'll be able to take all of them, but definitely 2 or 3, given the paucity of time. The first question is, should an e-commerce website focus only on showcasing and selling products, or should it also contain and display other details about the company, have resources like product catalogs and blogs? Anybody who wants to take it up?
Yeah, I can take it. So
Yeah,
more the information about the product and who's the seller. If you're a marketplace, who's the seller, the better it is. The customer, it inculcates the trust in the brand if you provide that information. And they say that 80% of the decision making happens with the visuals and the content that the customer reads on the page. Make sure it is well structured. Make sure you have the right amount of level of UI and UX capabilities implemented. It has to be visual. Don't just dump the content on the page. Make it look readable, beautiful, right balancing, right color and size of the fonts. And yes, information is certainly there. And I also am a good proponent of curated range. Don't dump the product just for the heck of it. Curate the range, do your range planning well in terms of who your target audience is, what your price points are within the collection, what are the different USPs of the product that you are launching, and then write the correct amount of content and provide the information. People are talking about video, so is this forum. Yeah, and make sure that you have the
Sure, Manish. I hope that answers the question. The next one is, we are a value fashion apparel retailer with over 100 stores, but are not fully nationally present yet. We just listed in one of the marketplaces. What is the best way in terms of platform technology for us to go omni, purely by leveraging store inventory and local delivery from store? Anybody? I'm sure all of you've been there, done that. What message would you like to give to the gentleman?
I think there are a lot of my friends that who are traditional brands and who are trying to transition on the other side. I think there are 2 parts. One is that if you want to set up an e-commerce, one strong suggestion that I give them that you should use a system like a Shopify or something. You get started right away. Do not try and reinvent the wheel yourself. It's going to take a long time. Plus, you're not mentally prepared for the amount of investment you'll have to do. It will just move you to the core. You will not even realize what you're doing. So, and you'll start strong, but then you'll fizz out over a period of time. So don't do that. Start small, start with a Shopify. I think at least that you can manage. If you want something which is more a decentralization of your inventory and managing inventory from your stores, I'm sure Shopify also would have certain modules to assist you with that, or otherwise there are multiple solutions, which are literally off the shelf at this point of time. But do not deploy a technology team till the time you're ready with a certain amount of revenue starting to happen. Otherwise, you will not take it all the way. You'll end up.
I'll just add on to that point that once you have your site built up, driving traffic to site is not that easy, right? So make sure you deliver the value, you have the right NPS so that customer comes back to you. Focus on that. Bringing traffic is not cheap these days. Or
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the solution there would be to first leverage the marketplaces, which he has done. I mean, starting on Amazon, but scale that up, find every marketplace that you can, and just list your products there. That's the better than building your own website.
Sure.
And I can also add to what Pankaj said. A lot of time I come across some startups and kind of mentor them, and people look at, what if I take up an open source Magento and just put up a VM there? Well, isn't that half the price of a Shopify, right? But you forget the cost of a CDN, of a WAF. You protect yourself from a DDoS attack. So factor those costs in. I think focus on setting up your business first, and then look at enriching the tech stack. So go for a platform. Say Shopify is a good one. You have WooCommerce and all, right? So start there and then scale your business model first.
Great wisdom there, gentlemen. We have time for one final question before we bring the curtains down. This one is specifically for Manoj. Manoj, can you provide some indicative numbers for the gains that nitrogen provides?
That's very difficult, Yashwendra. So it all depends on what sort of thing we are addressing. We have customers who has received around 70% gain. So somebody who was at 10 seconds have now come to 3 seconds. That's from a page load time perspective. There are different metrics. Somebody would want us to look at it from CSAT, how their CSAT has improved on the instant product catalog, which is our module which we claim will improve your product catalog CSATs. So in short, the answer is, I can't give you one number. Depending on the product we have and depending on the customer and what their requirements are, it can be anywhere from 1% to 80%.
Wow, great. That's all we have time for, ladies and gentlemen. To sum up today's discussion, the e-commerce sector in India is at an inflection point. The companies in this space will witness fast growth moving forward. However, to sustain this growth, they will have to deploy a platform that enables them to deliver fast, scalable, and secure online experiences across all devices at all times. This would eventually enable them to optimize their web performance and increase their business revenues while minimizing infrastructure and maintenance costs. We hope this session today will help you in delivering dramatic conversion, growth, and increased revenue for your organization. I would once again like to thank all our panelists for their wonderful insights and our attendees for sparing time for this session. Thank you all once again. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful evening ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Everyone. Thank you.
Bye.